Hey guys, Drifter here. It's finally time that we talk about skill-based matchmaking in Black Ops 6. Unsurprisingly, this is the primary concern of a very large number of potential players, and I think that Black Ops 6's matchmaking system might have a greater impact on the player base than the actual quality of the game. I think players would play a game of lesser quality that had the matchmaking that they wanted than an excellent game with a skill matching system, and people are taking this issue especially serious after the launch of XDefiant. XDefiant decided to have no skill-based matchmaking whatsoever in public matches, and since it was marketed to Call of Duty gamers, a lot of people in the COD community played XDefiant and genuinely enjoyed that matchmaking experience. However, despite all of this, Activision has been very reluctant to discuss any potential matchmaking changes. They are releasing white papers to discuss what's going on, but they're not really having a conversation about lessening the effect of the skill matching, and that's par for the course for them, much in the same way that it's par for the course to make a skill-based matchmaking video when the content supply is running low. Some people would say that talking about skill-based matchmaking is like beating a dead horse. I disagree. I think it's much more like if you had a horse that was happy, healthy, and just waiting to be turned into glue, then shot that horse a whole bunch of times with an AR-15, dropped a nuke on the horse's corpse, collected the horse's now radioactive bones, and threw them into a supernova to be ripped apart at the atomic level and be turned into space dust, which would then reseed the cosmos and eventually become fertile content to farm. Sorry, I couldn't help but to have a little bit of fun there. So I gotta do something wacky every video. But to cut to the chase, I think that Activision should literally just copy and paste whatever XDefiant is doing with their matchmaking into Black Ops 6. And you might ask why? Well, because it's extremely successful. XDefiant has been out for several months now, and it still has a solid player base, mostly of formerly Call of Duty players. It's not falling off like most shooters and most new games in general tend to do, and a big chunk of the people that are playing XDefiant are only there because they're happy with the casual nature of the game. Not having any skill matching helps keep this game very casual. I mean, it's casual to the point that people talk to me about XDefiant's lack of skill-based matchmaking when I'm doing physical therapy at the clinic. As most of you know, I've got 87 different health problems and have to go to physical therapy still, but while I'm there, some of the PTs talk about the skill matching system in Call of Duty or XDefiant. Some of the other patients who are gamers talk about it. It's really weird to see this sort of internet topic bleed into a public space, and it feels like I can't escape it even when I'm trying to get medical treatment. And most of the people, when comparing these two games that I run into in public, don't even talk about the gameplay whatsoever, or the movement, or the systems, or the maps, or modes. They're pretty much all just talking about the casual matchmaking in XDefiant. So whatever that game is doing, it's just plain working. Call of Duty developers have spent years telling us that skill matching is necessary, and on many occasions I have agreed with them and defended them in videos here on this channel, and I do think that there are good reasons behind wanting skill matching in games, such as it protects new players that are just learning the game, it protects disabled or very low-skilled players from just getting destroyed all the time, it can help even the playing field to make sure that every match is competitive, because winning too much or getting stomped too often is not very fun, and lots of games do well with skill matching, like Apex or Overwatch. Even their casual modes incorporate it. Even from Activision's perspective, somebody somewhere deep in the analytics department at the base of a volcano has decided that it's really good for player engagement, and that has been the prevailing logic for almost a decade now. And I know this is a video criticizing skill-based matchmaking, we're talking bad about it here, but the basics of those decisions really aren't terrible. However, a decade later, a new game has come out and decided to do the exact opposite, and it has completely shattered the mold and is extremely successful. And before we go any further, I'd like to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Logitech G, and their brand new MX Brio webcam, which is the webcam you've been looking at the entire time in this video. Now, normally I record on an $1,800 DSLR, which looks like this, but I've been testing out the new MX Brio webcam, which will do 4K 30 and a very crisp, clean 1080/60 with HDR lighting, and there is very little difference between this $1,800 DSLR camera and this $200 webcam. If you're curious about the MX Brio, you'll find a link down there in the description, along with code DRIFTER saving you 5% off. But for now, let's get back to the commentary. XDefiant is, if anything, a proof of concept for how impactful the matchmaking algorithm is on a community's enjoyment. There were a number of people claiming before the game came out that it would fail in some capacity because the matches wouldn't be fun. The logic was that they would be too lopsided and that players would eventually get tired of it and quit because nobody likes getting stomped all the time and nobody likes unchallenging wins, which I disagree with. I think there's a lot of people that don't like to be challenged and they love easy wins. I'm not one of them, but there's a big chunk of people out there like that. And again, that type of logic isn't terrible. But the result that we as a community got was the exact opposite. Players seem to love the uneven and almost RNG gambly nature of the matchmaking. There's definitely a few naysayers here and there. A couple of neckbeards on Reddit are just mad because they're bad, which is true of almost anything. You could probably post a cure for cancer on Reddit and some 47-year-old man who's unemployed and lives with his parents will write a 500-page dissertation about why your cure for cancer isn't good enough. But aside from those people, the vast majority of players seem to be having a good time. And the vast majority of the conversation of that already majority of players is around the casual nature of the game and how much they enjoy its skill-based matchmaking, or lack of skill matching system. So I think that Activision has a golden opportunity here to capitalize. This is what we all do in capital markets. So if anything, we're living in the land of capitalism here. If they want to make more money and more capital, all they have to do is the exact same thing. There is no shame whatsoever in chasing trends or trying to replicate something that's popular. That's something I have to do in content. That's something developers have to do all the time. Basically, every game ever has been copying and remixing from other games over the last decade. It's especially prevalent in Battle Royale, man. Anytime there's like a change in the Battle Royale formula, even a minor one, almost every other big BR will copy that change as best they can inside of their sort of gameplay loop. God, a lot of the BR games are just kind of running together these days. But it seems silly to not give people what they want. There might be some arguments that the company has invested a lot of money into the infrastructure and development of the technology that runs the skill-based matchmaking system. I mean, you've got super expensive algorithms, people with PhDs crunching numbers and churning out these incomprehensible sorting algorithms, and servers and demonware and researchers and analysts and all this kind of stuff going on. But sticking with an unsuccessful plan of action just because you've already invested in it is like the literal definition of the sunk cost fallacy. Sometimes it's better to cut your expense, like to sort of cut a project off, to stop doing it, to let the cost sink and just start over fresh and make the money elsewhere. You know, it's kind of like investing in horse carriages. There's not a big market for those, right? You can't make horse carriages popular again. So at some point you have to cut your losses and move over to cars or bicycles or whatever. So I think that if junking all of that development and technology and equipment and investment and running a much simpler matchmaking algorithm results in an increased amount of players, and especially an increased amount of happy players, then that's simply the correct decision for the company. Activision, like any corporation, wants to make money. They want to pay dividends to shareholders or show growth so people keep buying the stock. And the way they do that with gaming is selling first the game, then the microtransactions, maintaining a large amount of users, positive feedback and sentiment. The psychology of the gamers does play into stock price weirdly, but having more players, spending more money, and being happier about it is just the smart capitalist thing to do, for lack of a better word. I gotta be honest though, I think it's actually unlikely for them to make that choice. XDefiant came out now, and the proof of concept is happening now, whereas all the core aspects of this game have been in the works for, God, 3-4 years now. You can't just rip huge chunks of the code out and expect it to work. It would be really difficult to rework certain things this late into the process, and I just kind of don't think they want to have this conversation yet. I think corporate isn't really ready for this. This is a nuanced corporate conversation. As I mentioned before in other videos, it's a conversation about a topic so conspiratorial, so toxic, and so wild that it has spiraled out into real-life violence against people that I don't even want to name. I don't want to give any too more bad attention to that. But it's really wild. However, it would be nice. Imagine if Black Ops 6 had XDefiant's lack of skill matching. And that one sentence almost sums up this entire video, but it's true. Imagine playing this Black Ops 6 with all its crazy new movement systems and abilities and stuff like that, and not having to think for 1 second about what the algorithm is doing. Just jumping into a match full of random people and having fun, maybe stomping, maybe getting stomped, whatever, it happens sometimes. I think it could totally work. I think it could be great. I think it would make it super popular. I just don't think that's what we're going to see. Guys, that is all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful, and I hope that you come back next time when I beat this dead horse a little bit more. Drifter out.